Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Marnie Feuerman and I'm coming to you from my home in South Florida here where I am self-quarantining during this really scary pandemic. So I am right in there with you. And I wanted to offer some tips, particularly for couples, for how to cope with this extremely stressful situation right now. So this is something that I want to talk about for all couples, regardless of whether or not you were already in a distress situation or not. I want to normalize, first of all, the stress, the anxiety that you're feeling. There's a lack of structure. There's a lot of time together. Your movements are limited in what you can do. Some of you perhaps can't work and are really scared about the future given what's happening financially. And so it's almost as if you're in this bunker together with this invisible enemy swirling around you, just wreaking havoc on things. And all of us are really suffering because of that. And so I thought it would be good to kind of talk about a few things that may be helpful. And so first of all, I think it's good to have as much as possible of a routine. So whether that's the time you spend together, the time you spend apart, time outdoors, time working from home, leisure, what shows you watch when you have meal times, things like that. You can try to fall into some sense of routine and structure because we know that that helps reduce anxiety, especially if you have kids at home, that it's really, really helpful for them as well. The other thing is I want to normalize the different coping strategies that you each might have in response to this crisis. And so I want to emphasize that you're going to need to both be more accepting of yourselves and accepting of each other, and try not to get polarized around this, because I want you to recognize that what you are seeing is probably the way that your partner has coped all along with things. So if you have someone who tends to get extremely fearful and anxious and blows things up or seems to blow things out of proportion, makes mountains out of a molehill, they're going to be doing that like they've always done, only more so. And if you have somebody who tends to minimize things, say, oh, it's not that big a deal, it's not that bad, they're more avoidant, they contain very well, they're probably going to be doing that too. And so these are things that you probably already know about each other, but during a crisis, it becomes more extreme perhaps, and you're not likely to change each other right now, and I wouldn't try it. So I do have a specific tip that might be helpful in this regard. So rather than attack or criticize each other, or try to control each other with making changes, what I would suggest is to make very small, specific requests that are more behavioral. For example, if maybe one of you wants to go out to the grocery store and do grocery shopping, and the other one is just feeling really awful about that and really upset and unhappy and says something like, you're crazy, you shouldn't go, I don't want you to. What I would do is shift that a little bit. So I do want you to talk about your fear. So I want you to say, it's really scary for me, the idea that you're going out to the grocery store. And perhaps you can even request it as a favor to you. So you can say something like, it would make me feel much safer if you didn't go right now, and perhaps we together can come up with an alternative solution. Maybe we can talk about ordering from Instacart, and then what we're going to do when the bags arrive and how we're going to handle this. So you're breaking it down much smaller, you're making a specific behavioral request, and you're also talking about how you feel and what it will do for you if your partner makes this small change. And you may be very surprised that they're likely to do that. Another thing that I think is helpful for couples to do is to really reach out to your connections outside the home by using what we have available, which is fantastic. We have social media, we have video conferencing, we have Zoom, FaceTime, Skype, we have all sorts of ways to connect with people and also do it as a group format. So if you want to have a call with several friends of yours. You can even do an activity together. I hear about people having Netflix watch parties and happy hours, or however they're doing it, and it can really be quite fun. It will help you stay connected to the external world. And then the other thing that might be helpful is to make a point to reach out to people who you aren't able to see. Maybe they're in a much more vulnerable situation. They might be an older parent or a grandparent, and so it will really make you feel good, I think, if you make a point to reach out to those people. And so I want you to think of yourselves in a bubble of resilience right now during a very, very unprecedented, difficult time, and you should really band together and be proud of yourselves for being able to do that. Now I have a few tips for some of the couples that were perhaps already distressed prior to this happening. So they already had issues. Maybe you were already in some type of couples therapy. So there were other problems that were pre-existing before this came along, and now, of course, this just makes things even much more difficult. And so I want you to understand that you're probably not going to be able to solve those problems right now during this crisis. And the only thing I want you to think about is not making the problems worse. So you can put the problems on a shelf, like a shelf for the day or for the time, whatever you need to do. You have to look at it like you would band together to approach, let's say, another issue that was happening, like if your kid became sick or a parent just had a new diagnosis. You probably would come together to try to work together to solve that external issue. And so I want you to do that with this pandemic right now as well. And don't try to change each other or make drastic differences in each other right now. It just isn't the time. And so when those old problems crop up or you start arguing or fighting about them, you can even blame the virus if you want. You don't have to blame each other or the marriage, and just say to yourselves, all right, we're going to just take a break right now because this probably isn't a good time to try to have this talk or this argument or try to resolve this right now, and then try to take a break from each other. And I don't want you to draw any major conclusions about the state of your relationship, particularly your marriage, during this crisis time. Your judgment just isn't going to be 100% the way it should be. And remember, there's going to be a time later where you can look back and, and do what you need to do. But you'll have a lot more perspective at that time, but I wouldn't try to do that right now. And for those couples that perhaps were even at that state where one of you or both of you were thinking about divorce, and this is something you were thinking about before this all happened, that's another thing that's really absolutely not a good idea to be making a decision about right now. Okay, so you don't want to make any major decisions during a crisis, and know that divorce itself isn't an emergency. You can get divorced at any time. You can always decide later. And you don't want to have expectations that your relationship is drastically going to change during this time. And if you are in a relationship or marriage where your partner was thinking about leaving already and they had already told you about this, I wouldn't push them to resolve things and push for closeness or expect emotional support from them right now. So you're going to want to make sure that you seek that elsewhere, and that the only thing that you want to do is put something as major as that on hold right now. So that's all I have for you today, and hopefully I will come to you later on with some other videos and tips. And I just hope that all of you stay safe and know that I am right there with you during this time, and that I'm always here for you. So please reach out. If you want, you can like my Facebook page. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, on social media. So feel free to connect with me there so that you can stay up to date on any videos, content, articles, tips that I put out. Thank you.